Hello and welcome to today's module. Today we're talking about one of the practical uses of trusts and also foundations, and that is protecting your family assets, or sometimes called a little bit more shorter style, asset protection. So what is asset protection? Why do you need asset protection? So the answer to that is because sometimes there are situations in which your assets or your family's assets are at risk from external attack. And that attack can come from creditors, it can come from bankruptcy. Bearing in mind that if you're in business, especially, bankruptcy can happen sometimes, even for situations that are pretty much beyond your control. It can happen from lawsuits, from insurance failures. For example, if you are adventure tour guide, somebody dies on one of your tours, you probably have insurance to cover that, but whether that insurance is enough or adequate is another question. You also get gold diggers, and I know that's a not very nice expression, but you will find people who outside your family want to come into your family in order to take advantage of some of your family assets and some of your wealth. If you protect your family assets in an asset protection trust, it can also protect you in the case of divorce in the future. And a lot of people are using these structures as an alternative to a prenuptial agreement. So in other words, before you get married, you put your assets into an asset protection trust, and then those assets do not become part of matrimonial property and are not caught up in any future matrimonial arguments. And the last one, it's a bit vague, but the truth is that if you have things, other people can be jealous. And jealous people have a habit also of causing problems and attacking you. So the more protection, the more defenses you can put up around your family assets, the better. Let's take a look at how asset protection works in practice. So here we have a family, happy family, mum, dad, 2 kids, or 3 kids, and a dog. And mum and dad, or maybe mum, somebody has some business. In this case, I've drawn it as a factory, but it could equally be a consulting business or a services business, or in fact any kind of business at all. And of course, what the family also has is some family assets, which I've represented here by the picture of a house. And family assets are, of course, the family home, but also maybe the car, some savings and investments, maybe some holiday home, and these kind of things. And life is tough. Bad things happen. We've all seen, for example, the consequences of COVID, and that caused, along with other situations like that, that caused perfectly good businesses to fail through no fault of their own. This can also happen if you are in a cyclical business, like, for example, property development. So property development can go very well at some periods of time. In other periods, it can be very challenging indeed. It's very cyclical. So the bad thing happens, and the business fails. And that in itself is a terrible thing. We like to think that our businesses are protected because they are in limited liability companies, things like that. But the truth is that when the business fails, there is often some kind of contagion. Perhaps there was a personal guarantee. Perhaps the creditors decide that the business wasn't being properly managed. There can be many, many reasons. And the consequence of that, the flow-on consequence, is the family loses not just the business, but also the family home and also the other assets. And this is the reason why people like to have asset protection trusts, because what an asset protection trust does is it simply builds a fence around those family assets so that if the business fails, then that's not great, but the family assets are protected and not you're not going to lose them. So that's an example of what we're trying to achieve. Is this a morally good thing? I ask that because it's a discussion that people have sometimes. I think it can be, and it can also not be. The answer is that it depends. I'm from New Zealand, and I grew up in New Zealand, and I lived through the 1980s. And in the 1980s, there were some quite spectacular, or following the 1987 stock market crash, there were some quite spectacular business failures. One of them in particular, the chief executive and founder and owner of a very large company, basically the company collapsed, all the money was gone. He ended up in jail, and many investors, old ladies, widows, orphans, all this kind of thing, many investors lost large amounts of money, in some cases their entire life savings. But when this character came out of jail, he was still driving around in luxury cars, and he was living in a beautiful luxury home. And everyone said, well, how is that possible? And the answer was that those assets were not his, they were in a family trust. So, from that perspective, I have to say that maybe that's not a great example of family trusts in action, because you were depriving innocent people of their rights. So that's a bad mark for trusts. On the other side, here's another way of looking at it. So we have our family, we have mum, dad, 3 kids, we have the doggy, and we have a house. Okay, and I'd like to ask the question of you, whose house is that? Now, if I go to the land register, I may find that house is registered in the name of daddy, or maybe mummy, or maybe mummy and daddy. But if you ask the children whose house it is, they will not say, it's my daddy's house. They will say, it's our house, it's our family house. It belongs not to a person, but it belongs to our family. That's what they would say, and they're right, because that's really what's going on. So if daddy has some financial trouble, then why should the children suffer as a consequence of that? Why should they lose their house? They were not the ones who caused the problem. And that is the reason why a lot of families, sensible families, choose asset protection, just to simply protect their family from individual risks. So how do we make the difference between what is fair, what is just, what is right, and what is wrong, what is evil? And this question is important, actually, because it's not just about how do we feel about things, what's the moral aspects of it, but it's important because this is one of the things that the courts will also consider. So if you have an asset protection trust, and if things go wrong, and you need your protection because, for example, someone is suing you in the court, then the court will start to look at your trust and say, is this trust just? Is this a good trust, or is it a bad trust? I'm all in favor of the good trusts. I'm not so keen on the bad trusts. Let's see what a good trust looks like. Okay, a good trust is designed, created, because I want to protect my family. And it's created because I want my family assets to be owned by my family. It's created because I'm creating it because I'm concerned about some potential risks, but these risks are unreal. By unreal, I mean that they are real risks, but not real at the moment. So a good example, I mentioned property development. If I'm a property developer and I create my trust at a time when the property development business is going very well, I have no real risk. I have a future risk. I'm aware of it because I know the business is cyclical, but it's not something, there are no black clouds on the horizon. Another sign that your trust is just is that asset protection is not the only motivation, not the only reason that it was created. Asset protection is great. You can create a trust foundation purely to protect your assets, but very often you will find that asset protection is a secondary factor, and that the main purpose or main goal of the trust is something like family succession, passing assets from one generation to the next. And if you're doing that anyway, why not then build in asset protection as an add-on, optional extra if you like, to your trust, because it gives you extra benefits. Another way of putting all this is to think about umbrellas. Whenever you see websites and books and all that kind of thing about trusts and foundations, very often you will see pictures of umbrellas. It's either that or trees, pretty much. And the idea of the umbrella in this case is that you buy an umbrella when the sun is shining. You don't need it now, but you're ready in case rain happens. And if you do that, then I think you have a good, sensible, and appropriate asset protection trust. What is a bad trust? Okay, bad trust is when you buy your umbrella, but you buy your umbrella when it's already raining. We'll talk about that more in a little minute. But if you are trying to deal with problems that you already have, then usually that's, we can say, is not great, because you are probably to some extent acting, say, unethically, wrongly, without good sense of morals. It's unjust if you're trying to cheat somebody, if you're trying to cheat, for example, your creditors, if you're trying to cheat your future ex-wife or your future ex-husband, and it's not just or good if it is not real. And we will talk about that again on the next slide. What I'm trying to get to here is that intention is the most important factor in judging whether a trust is, asset protection trust is a good trust or not. And by the way, this is not all just about how do we feel about it and our moral rights and wrongs and our whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. This is also quite important because these are the factors that the courts will look at when somebody attacks your trust. So again, intention. If you have a good intention and you create your trust for good, valid reasons, then an asset protection trust is not only a good thing, but it will work. If you have an evil intention and you create your trust for bad reasons, then hopefully, because I think that's not a good way to use trusts, so I hope that in that case your trust will not work. Let's talk about this. Is it real? So if you go back a few, I have to keep moving myself around. It's very inconvenient. I apologize. If you go back a few videos in the series, we talked about Is My Trust a Lemon? And one of the examples we gave there is a situation where the same person is featuring in too many roles. And if you imagine that I am this dodgy person who wants to create an unjust asset protection trust, I might create something like this. So here I am, here is Gordon, the founder of the trust. Gordon is also the trustee. He is also the beneficiary of the trust. He is also perhaps the supervisor or protector or enforcer of the trust. And he's also the person who is using the assets of the trust. In this case, it's a car. Now, by the way, this structure, in fact, is not necessarily possible in every jurisdiction. But even if Gordon does something a little bit different and something that looks like this, we have to ask the question, is this real? Because what Gordon is going to do is he's going to go bankrupt. His creditors are going to ask him for the car, and he's going to say, look, I'm really sorry, because I don't have the car. The car belongs to the trust, and the trust is, the assets in the trust are no longer mine. But pardon my French, right? I won't say the word beginning with B, but that's not true. Yes, he has created a legal structure, but the truth is, if you look at the substance of that, at what's really going on, you will see that Gordon is still in charge of everything. Gordon gets all the benefit. He has all the control. Therefore, that car is Gordon's. And there was no proper intention on the part of Gordon to transfer that car. So that's not a good trust for asset protection purposes. By the way, I say that, but you will find quite often people try to do that, or something like this, or some variation on this theme. And that's a pity, because their advisors are not helping them to do it correctly, because these kind of deals, like this, they don't work. Time is also critical. It's again about the umbrella. If you buy the umbrella when the sun is shining and there are no problems around, and problems come along later, then that's great. If you buy your umbrella when you can see the storm clouds, then it's still good if it's an umbrella, but for a trust it's not so great. If you wait till it's raining, that's a problem. So simple approach of saying trust first, then problem, and then the claim against the trust. That's the way to approach it. And basically, the bigger the gap, the longer the time that passes between the creation of the trust and the problem, the better. It's the same rule also for debts. So if you create a trust, and then sometime after that, you take on a personal debt, and sometime after that, you go bankrupt, or you have some financial difficulties, your creditors should not, in my opinion, be able to attack the assets in the trust, because those things were already in the trust when you borrowed the money. So they had a chance to know about that. On the other hand, if you do it the other way, you create the debt, the creditor looks at you and says, oh, this person's got lots of nice assets, so I can lend them the money and feel safe. If you then put all those assets into a trust and then go bankrupt, I think the creditor has a very good argument against you. So trust first, problem second, claim third is good. Problem first, trust second, claim third, not so great. And again, this is back to our basic rule, which we're going to keep on repeating. It's all about intention. What are you doing? Why are you doing it? What is the reason? What is the logic? Administration is also important. So back to my example with Gordon. Gordon never really gave anything up. He still has control of the car. He's driving the car. He makes the decisions about the car, and he gets the benefit of the car. So it wasn't a real trust. When you create a real trust, you are transferring the control, the management of the assets in the trust to the trustees. So if you want it to be really not yours, and remember, if you want to protect your assets against an attack on you, you want the assets to be not yours, you have to take that quite seriously. So that means that, for example, if you decide that your trust would like your trust to buy some shares, you don't ring the stockbroker yourself and order the shares, because it doesn't show the independent management of the assets. Instead, what happens is that the trustees need to ring the stock. They might ring the stockbroker because you told them, or you suggested to them that it was a good idea, but it's the trustees who actually ring the stockbroker. It's the trustees who do the administration of the trust. It's the trustees who do the accounts. And again, this is all about showing that intention is the most important thing. It's about the truth of the intention that's important, but it's also about demonstrating or showing or somehow proving the intention. And you can prove the intention by the way that you behave. You can prove the intention by the structure that you create. and you can prove the intention by the documents that you sign. Okay. So, other things to know. When you have an asset protection trust, sometimes that protection is called on. What I mean by that is that sometimes somebody will try to attack. Quite often, actually, an asset protection trust works really well because it stops the attack before the attack even happens. So the creditor or whoever looks and sees, oh, there's a trust, okay, and they stop pursuing that approach. But if they see a trust that's not so great, so in other words, if it didn't satisfy some of the requirements that we talked about in this video, then they will have a go at trying to get the money. And there are three ways they can do that. So the first way they can do that is they can say the trust is perfectly okay, but I would like to challenge the transfer of the assets into the trust. And very often this overlaps with insolvency law. For example, in some countries, if you transfer assets only a short time before you go into insolvency or bankruptcy, those transfers are somehow not valid. Again, that's the rule that time is your friend. Or if you're transferring it to somebody who is your friend or somebody who is, and a trust somehow seems to be considered to be your friend, or you're transferring it to somebody for less than the market value of the asset. Again, when you transfer things into trusts, you typically give them to the trust. So those are reasons why people might attack the transfer. And again, the longer time ago it was that you transferred the things into the trust, the less likely that this approach is going to be successful. It's what you mainly see with insolvency attacks, and we can talk about 2 years, 5 years. I think once you get past about 5 years, then you are probably on pretty safe ground. Second thing that they can do, and this is what happens more often in the case of divorce, is they can attack the assets. And they can say, okay, the trust is valid, but even if it's a valid trust, whatever, I would still like to have that money because I am justly entitled to it. And so what the courts will do in that case is kind of dig into the trust and take the money out, even though the trust is still, at least in the opinion of the courts, still legally valid. And like I said, that's most commonly what you would see in the case of divorce. And the third approach that you will very occasionally see is an attack on the trust itself, where the creditor or the attacking party says to the court, this trust is not real, it's not valid. There was no true intention to create the trust. This is what Gordon did. He created something on paper, but it wasn't real. And if that not real, if that game, that fake structure was created with the intention of defrauding or cheating your creditors, then not only is that bad, because you'll lose the protection of the trust, but it can be even worse because it can become even a criminal offense of fraud. So again, I know this is a bit repetitive, but intention is the most important thing. If you have a good intention, then that's great. If you have a bad intention, it can be quite problematic. And intention is not just about, in this case, it's not just about what's in your head. It's also about how you evidence that, how you show that by the structure that you create. What documents do you have? What do those documents say? How do you manage and administer your trust? What is the structure of your trust? All of these things need to be designed not just because you have the intention, but also to show that the intention was genuine. And the truth is that you can actually, in reality, get something not that far away from what Gordon had. But if you do it in the correct way, you do it in a proper way, then it will work. So again, intention is the most important thing. If you do it correctly, do it properly. And so do it correctly, do it properly means go to somebody who has experience in creating these structures. Go to a specialist. If you do that, then an asset protection trust, I know that I have sounded a bit negative because I spend a lot of my life looking at people who have done this wrong and then trying to clean up the mess. But if you do it right from the beginning, then it's a fantastic tool, because you can go to bed at night knowing that your family assets, your family home, now belongs to your family, and that your family assets and your family home are safe. So if you do it correctly, then it is truly a fantastic thing, and it really works. So thank you for your time. That's all from today. Thanks a lot for watching. I hope you found that useful and helpful. If you'd like to see more of this, please like the video and please subscribe using the button that you can see just there. Thank you very much. Have a great day, and thanks again for watching.